Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Good, very good. Yeah, then sorry again for the delay. So Murphy's law, everything that breaks can breaks. So the OBS system was totally broken again. We didn't have images, so therefore we had to reboot this. Okay, so it's my greatest pleasure to welcome Asinetta Serban today from Amazon Web Services. She will give a talk about culture of innovation and working backwards process. Looking forward to this talk because normally it would have been the opening to our challenges. It would have been a description on how you could have worked on the challenges. And Asinetta will introduce us to that. And this is probably a technique that you can apply when you do innovative processes. We're a little bit behind schedule, but let me still quickly go through it. So this was yesterday, and today we have the following interesting talks. And with that, I show you the trailer of Asinetta, and then Asinetta, I hand directly over to you afterwards. So let's start with that.
Yeah. Can you project my presentation, please? Hello, good morning, everybody.
They forgot. So yeah, let me relaunch the Zoom here. If it's not connected, I don't know. Lars, can you check? Yeah, the Zoom seems not connected. Just go to the pad on the browser. Yeah, without video. It's okay. And you can do with, it's no problem. You can also do with, it's okay. Okay, perfect. We have, wait a second. We have to move this. Yes.
should I just start, even though the presentation is not there?
You do not see it?
No, I don't see it.
When you switch the picture that you see in the Zoom, you have to switch to another presenter.
Okay. Well, I'll just start anyway, because we are running a bit out of time. Yeah, I'm seeing another picture, but maybe I'll just start with the introduction and then when it comes, it comes. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for this invitation and opportunity. As Mark Oliver said, I'm Asinetta Serban. I'm the Digital Innovation Lead for the AWS Cloud Innovation Program in France. So I'm extremely delighted to be with you this morning to provide you with an overview of Amazon's culture of innovation and our working backwards process. As we work with customers in AWS, they often ask, how does Amazon innovate? And in this session, I'll share details about our culture, our approach to inventing, and how we organize for innovation at Amazon. So before we start, I'll also share a very important message. Of course, there are many ways to innovate. We do not claim that this is the best form of innovation, and certainly not that it's perfect. But it's what we've adopted, and that's what works for us, and we're happy to share it with you today.
It's not working.
It's not working.
Okay, we still try to fix it. Sorry, just continue. Sorry.
Yes.
Perfect. We can jump to the next slide. Yes, perfect. Thank you. So let's continue. So our mission, I know it's incredibly broad, is to be the most customer-centric company on earth. This mission doesn't specify the domains or the markets, and it's not defined by a specific industry, a region of the world, or even by technology. But we do aim to be a customer-centric company. And notice there is nothing in our mission that talks about selling books or even about e-commerce. Of course, as I said, this mission is really broad, but it's also very specific because it helps us make decisions. For example, I've been in several meetings where the tie-breaking question is, in a decision is this customer obsessed? What is the best thing for our customer? So I will tend to use the word customer a lot, but other companies, you might use another word. You can use clients, citizens, and users. For example, my customers are citizens or residents. They receive services from my organization. And you can have also internal customers, right? So I'm using the word customer, but you can fill in with whatever words you prefer. Next slide, please. So we believe innovation starts with the customer. And at Amazon, we are constantly diving deep to understand what they need, or what they want, and where they have frustration or pain in their life. And we work backwards from there by inventing ways to delight customers. So it's not just about being close to customers, right? And asking them what they want, but it's about really understanding their situation and context so that we can invent on their behalf. And for example, within AWS, about 90% of what we build is based on requests from customers. And the other 10% is based on our own strategic interpretation of something they might have indirectly expressed. Of course, there are very variable approaches to how you center a business. You can focus on competitors, invent new technologies, innovate around business models, and many more. At Amazon, we've chosen to center around obsessive customer focus. Next slide, please. So when you start with customers, it opens you up to explore innovating many more areas. So as you know, we started as an online bookstore, and then we're expanding to other categories, starting with CDs and DVDs. Now we offer cloud computing with AWS. We have devices like Kindle and Echo. We have a TV and film production studio, and we have physical stores such as Amazon Books, Amazon Go, and Amazon 4-Star. So on the surface, these businesses may seem unrelated, right? But inside of Amazon, the way we obsess over customers and how we think about inventing is actually what is consistent. And it's deeply embedded in our culture. Next slide, please. I like this quote and I like to share it with you. So that's what Jeff Bezos wrote in a shareholder letter in 2016. And I like the fact that he pointed, customers are always dutifully, wonderfully dissatisfied. And when they report being happy and business is great, even when they don't know it yet, customer wants something better, and your desire to delight customer will drive you to invent on their behalf. And that's exactly what motivates us, is really innovation that we do on behalf of our customers. And we don't build technology for technology's sake, right? The goal is not to invent in isolation. We really put the customer at the center of everything we do. And when you start with customers, we can innovate in many, many more areas. So when you take into account the approach of focusing on customers and working backwards to invent on their behalf, it makes sense why we have so many businesses that on the surface might not seem very connected. Next slide, please. So the big question is, how do we organize for innovation? We have 4 pillars that unlock innovation at Amazon. Again, that's our own way of doing it. There are many other ways, but that's the way we do it at Amazon. You'll see as we progress in the presentation that these pillars are overlapping and interdependent. So each pillar depends on each other. And when we leverage each together, we harness the potential of everyone in our company to innovate. Next slide, please. The first pillar is our culture. In order to innovate, we need people to operate our system of innovation. We rely on our leadership principle to drive consistency in the people we hire. Next slide, please. So what are these leadership principles? So at Amazon, we have a philosophy that everyone is a leader. And these 14 leadership principles are part of Amazon's DNA, really. They describe everything, how we do business, how our leaders lead, and how we keep the customer at the center of our decision. So we use this to hold ourselves and each other accountable. And we use them really every day to make decisions. You go into a meeting and you ask, is that bias for action? Is that deliver results? So it's really part of our daily work. We've also embedded these leadership principles throughout our hiring, promotion, development, and feedback mechanisms. So of course, it's important to note that following all 14 of this at one time is quite difficult, if not impossible. Why? Because they are not meant to be completely harmonious. For example, how can you dive deep into the details of a problem while also having bias for action and moving quickly to solve it, right? But leaders are expected to use good judgment and know how when to balance this. Understand different leadership principles and when to apply them in different situations and at different times. For example, invent and simplify. The leadership states leaders expect and require innovation and invention from their teams and always find ways to simplify. They are externally aware, look for new ideas from everywhere, and are non-limited by not invented here. And of course, it means also that as we do new things, we accept that we may be misunderstood for a long period of time. For example, why am I saying that? For example, when we are inventing something new and we're willing to be misunderstood was when we launched AWS in 2006. So we started the business, right, in 2006. It was quite a while ago now. And Wall Street and others said it was such a risky bet. And at the time, we learned that a lot about building scalable infrastructure and thought that other enterprises will benefit. And here we are now. Perhaps another example is Kindle. I don't know if you have a Kindle. I guess if you have a Kindle, raise your hands in the chat. But many people question the first generation of Kindle. It was a bit of time ago, but why? Because it was a bit bulky. It was heavier than most books. And outside the question why we will build a product that will compete with our core business, right? That is selling physical books on Amazon.com. But quite frankly, at the time, we believed that in the long term, customer will want the simplicity of being able to download a book and start reading it. And so we started with the vision of any book in the world in 60 seconds or less. And that's why Kindle has such a success today. So basically, we still focus on the long-term vision today, and we continue to invent new ways to delight our readers. Next slide, please. The other mechanism that we use is something that we call 1 to 2 way doors. So, one of our leadership principles is bias for action. It means that speed matters in business, right? And because many decisions and action are reversible, I did not need extensive study. So how do we decide when it's appropriate to move quickly, right? One helpful mental model we've developed is the concept of one-way door and two-way doors. For example, one-way door have significant and really it needs deep analysis before going through them. For example, that could be building a new fulfillment center or a data center. That's a huge investment in terms of time, in terms of finances, etc. Two-way doors, however, which quite frankly are most decisions, have limited and reversible consequences, such as experimenting with a new feature on our mobile shopping app, for example, or launching a new service on AWS, a new feature, on AWS. So when we see a two-way door and have enough information to believe that going through, it will be a good idea, we just walk through it. If it doesn't improve the customer experience, for example, we can just reverse the change. And either way, we've learned valuable lessons. So we teach, basically to sum up this, we teach leaders to make a decision when we have around 70% of information that we wish we had. And because if we wait until we have 90% of the information, we're probably moving too slow to innovate. Next slide, please. So moving on to our second pillar, a mechanism has a very specific meaning at Amazon. Mechanisms are complete processes that turn inputs into outputs. We use this process to take the input of a raw idea, for example, put it through a mechanism and get the output of customer-centric products and services. There are many types of mechanisms at Amazon that allow us to scale, help leaders operate beyond their direct line of sight, such as end-on cord. We have weekly business review, etc. However, in the context of innovation, what we use as a mechanism is called the working backwards process. And this working backwards process consistently drives innovative, customer-centric thinking and execution at Amazon. So every customer-facing product and service developed across Amazon, so across all businesses, uses the working backwards process. So we use this mechanism to make sure that we are building the right thing for customers and that we are customer obsessed from the very beginning of an idea. Next slide, please. The central artifacts of the working backwards process is a working backwards document, and that we refer as a PR FAQ. And a PR FAQ includes three things: a press release, a frequently asked question, and visuals. Next slide, please. But of course, before we jump right into creating these artifacts, we need to begin by immersing ourselves with our customers. So who are they? What are their needs? Where do they have pain or frustration in their lives? At what time of the day? What are their emotional needs? And what are their functional needs? So really, we spend a lot of time diving really deep to understanding what they need. As I said, every product or service across Amazon uses this methodology. And for example, in 2018 alone, we launched more than 1,957 new features and services in 1 year. So that's quite a huge process and innovative pattern, right? Next slide, please. So we have all these ideas, right? And of course, ideas are cheap and can be easy to come by. But the real question is, how do you know when you have an idea worth exploring more deeply? How do you determine if your new idea is ready to spend time writing on a working backwards doc, a PR FAQ? So we always start with a construct that's is called the 5 customer questions, as you can see on the slide. And we teach everybody at Amazon to wrestle with this question as they start thinking about new ideas. Of course, it might seem deceptively simple. You can say, oh, I can just spend 5 minutes, but actually you can really spend like 5 weeks or 5 months if you really want to dive deep into this understanding your customers. And by asking these questions, we will refine the thinking. And when you have some answers, you can then start working on your working backwards document. So as I said, the working backwards document, they have 3 main parts. I'll start with the first, which is the press release. The press release is a one-page narrative describing a new product or service using customer-centric language. With a press release, we leap into the future and imagine how a customer feels and what they would say about a new idea. And we do this before anyone writes even a single line of code. Really, that's the very, very beginning of our process. So we do limit the press release to just 1 page because it forces us to be really crisp around what we describe for this product. And this press release is intended to be a vision document. Actual press release we will issue, but it's really a vision document. And in the press release, we communicate who the customer is, what problem they face today. We describe the solution with a description of the most important benefits. And we also include a date we expect the product to launch. So is it in 1 year or 6 months? Of course, we don't want to have a date too far out. So not in 2030, that will be too far out, right? We try to have a date that is pretty close and actually doable, like 1 year. And of course, in this press release, we also include a customer quote. So that's a fictional quote from a fictional customer, but it actually forces us to put ourselves in the mind of the customer, right? And to think about how they would describe the benefits and value of the new product or service. The second document we write is a frequently asked question document. And this covers the most likely questions a customer or other stakeholders will have about the new product or service. So while the press release is just 1 page, the FAQ could be like 5 or more pages. And that's where we dive deep into the detail of the product or service we are proposing. And basically, our FAQ is a backlog, really, for our product management. And customer questions are very straightforward, right? So how does it work? Can I do X with this? Who is eligible to use this program or service? But we also include stakeholder questions. So that might be internal stakeholders, such as what is the budget? What are the legal considerations? What are the risks? What are the other alternatives? What are the technical details, etc. And writing answer to this question forces us to anticipate the tough question a customer may ask. And finally, the final artifact that we create is visuals. So what's, on the slide you can see a storyboard, but it can be a very different type of visual. It can be rough sketches, it can be storyboards, of course, it can be technical architectural diagrams, and many more. And you don't have to be a great designer. Believe me, I am definitely not a good designer and I draw terribly. But in my opinion, it works really well because it's really project your vision on the paper and you can really draw the customer experience by doing this visual. Of course, as you clarify your thinking in the press release and FAQ, the fidelity of the visual will increase. And it will also iterate in time. Of course, it's very important to note that the goal of all of this is not just to create a document, right? It's a conversation starter. The first draft, the working backwards artifacts are never perfect, but it will be reviewed, iterated, and it will become clearer and stronger. And when we review working backwards document, we discuss, debate, ask questions, and all of this discussion feeds back into the new version of the document. And again, we do all this before writing a single line of code, really. Next slide, please. So moving on, the third pillar is architecture. So at Amazon, we provide our builders with an architecture platform and a robust set of tools that they can use so that it can free them from unnecessary constraints. Because imagine using the working backwards process to create an amazing idea for a new product or service, but then you learn that your engineering team doesn't have access to server capacity and they have to wait several months to just have a server provisioned. That would be very bad, right? So, and that would slow the pace of innovation. So in order to enable our builder to innovate, we created this really powerful self-service platform, AWS. And there's no line to wait to access storage, compute, databasing, IoT, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. And of course, this totally changes the organization because we reduce the amount of time that we spend about thinking about innovation because we fear about the different processes that we have to take. And we just jump right into it because we have all the tools at our disposal to go very quickly. Next slide, please. Thank you. So within, as I mentioned, we have a lot of different services. I will not go into detail on this because otherwise we'll never finish. But we, of course, continue to expand our services. We have more than 175 services to date. And that is what enables us to really innovate at scale. Next slide, please. And yeah, and so basically that's how the no gatekeepers is what supports and accelerates the pace of innovation. Because first, we are able to prototype very rapidly. We are able to spin up thousands of servers in minutes, and we have access to very robust full feature technology. Second, because we have very low cost of failure. When you can prototype rapidly, it changes the organization because it expands the group of people inside a company that are thinking about new ideas. And third, we can move to scale really quickly. When something works, we can just deploy globally in minutes. So these are very free things that is enabled by our architecture, prototype rapidly, low cost of failure, and scale really quickly. Next slide, please. And our final pillar is organization. And this is really important because we need, in order to innovate quickly and beautifully, you have to empower your teams to invent on behalf of their customers. And at Amazon, we have a very distinct way of organizing to provide our teams with both ownership and agility. Next slide, please. First, we need to find the right people that can operate that system, right? And that's why it's very important for Amazon to hire builders, not just technical builders in the sense people would like to invent, people would like to look at different customer experiences and assess what's wrong with them and reinvent them. And people will get that launch is the starting line and not the finish line. And really we need these builders and give them the freedom to build. Next slide, please. And with these builders, we've structured them organizationally in a kind of a very own way. We call that our 2 pizza teams. Of course, the meaning is that no team should be big enough that it will take more than 2 pizzas to feed them. Of course, in the US, the pizzas are quite big, so it can depend on the country you're in, but you get a bit of the meaning here, right? So basically, the concept is that the idea is to create a little startup of around 5 to 10 people and providing the conditions so that each team has ownership and autonomy. These are really decentralized in autonomous teams, really, and they are empowered to develop and launch based on what they learn from their interaction with customers. And these pizza teams, they own every function, and that is very important, from engineering to testing to product management. So really, they have a mission to operate really quickly, independently in the entire line of business. Of course, as the team grows, this team will be split in several mini pizza teams because the idea is really not to spend too much time on an overhead of communication because the team is too big. Next slide, please. So by organizing ourselves in our small and empowered team, we really able to experiment early and often and to quickly iterate on our build and build our success. As I said before as well, it also allows us to fail fast because we try new things. If it works, it works, and that's great, and we can scale. If it doesn't, I mean, the cost of failure would be minimal. Next slide, please. To recap, there are 4 pillars through which we organize for innovation: culture, mechanism, architecture, and organizations. Are all interconnected. Of course, if you remove one of these, you will not get the same results. But I think that to take the full advantage of the cloud, for example, I think you have to think, of course, of the architecture, but also of the culture, of mechanism and organization. Next slide, please. Very quickly, I love this quote by Jeff Bezos because what I like is that Jeff Bezos emphasizes that our job is also to enable others to unleash their creativity. And that's exactly what we do. Next slide, please. That's exactly what we do with our cloud innovation program. So I put up there a map. We have 10 cloud innovation centers in the world. I am extremely privileged to represent the one in France. It's a strategic collaboration with the Sciences Po in Paris. And basically what we do in the cloud innovation program is to apply what I just presented, the working backwards process, combine with of course, our savviness innovation techniques, but also technical knowledge to develop prototypes in the cloud that are posed by public administrations in France. Next slide, please. So we've launched the Sciences Po School of Public Affairs Public Policy Incubator last year. And as I said, we work with students and with public administration to solve challenges. One of this challenge and solution that we worked on in a very short cycle, it took 5 months, is a project called Service Public Plus. So it's an initiative that was cooperating with Région Bretagne. And the aim of this challenge was to strengthen the link between citizen and public services. So we developed this portal that allows citizens to have access to the necessary information on Maison France Service. Maison France Service is an administrative tool that enables citizens to have access to administrative procedures near their home, especially in the countryside. And the procedure, they can book also an appointment directly on the portal. And we developed a video conferencing tool, especially if we face another lockdown. I think it would be quite useful. We hope not, but the idea also was to enable users to assess the service. So there is a evaluation tool embedded in this portal. And it's two-sided. We also have a specific space for the administrative agents where they can prepare the appointment, they can produce pre-filled administrative reports, and they can train in a gamified way on new approaches. Next slide, please. Very quickly, because we are running out of time, I'm presenting 2 more, but quickly. We've developed this application, which is aimed at offering residents or citizens the possibility of voting on local projects presented by the city. They can register to events nearby, and they can see where they can go to have their to make a new passport, for example, and to have new procedures. Next one, please. And finally, I just presented you one of our challenge. That's the KIC in Bahrain. And the challenges are focused on public health and education opportunities. And this most recent challenge addressed finding a medium through which people with speech and hearing impairment can be engaged to be speaking with the conventional world around them. And we use Amazon Lens and IEML to display a screen, enabling sign language as a model of language and communication. All right, as we need to add at the end of this presentation, I hope this session was useful to you and encourage you to find new ways to drive innovation. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm open to questions, even though we are running out of time, but feel free to contact me, of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Asinetta, for the amazing talk. I don't know about your schedule. Would you have 10 more minutes, or do you have to leave immediately?
No, I can stay 10 minutes.
Okay, because then I would do a quick breakout. I don't know if you joined yesterday, so we always do 3 minutes, or normally we do 5 minutes breakout with the participants so that they can discuss a bit about your talk, prepare the questions, and then we come back. You will also be assigned to a breakout room, so if you want, join in, and you can discuss with the 5 people you are in the room with. Okay, so then we go to the breakouts and make it a quick one, so 4 minutes probably. So see you in 4 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Wonderful. Welcome back. So I hope you had very nice sessions with your 5 other people, up to 5 other people, and yeah, that opens the question round. As always, I take the privilege of asking the first question. What was the craziest thing you saw happening in the working backwards process? Do you have a nice story to share about that? Was there anything when you worked with a customer, for instance, that they misunderstood something, or that it's like they loved something in particular, something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. In the working backwards, so we conduct workshops. Usually it's one-day workshop with customers, or for example, with Sciences Po. And one part that is absolutely amazing to see is the session that we call Crazy Eights. So, for example, participants to the workshop they have 8 minutes to produce 8 ideas, and you have a countdown, and it's absolutely insane to see them really rushing and then starting to stress out because you have this rush, and then you have all these amazing ideas because with a constraint of time, that's where the creativity is really unleashed. And it's always amazing. I love this part, really, to see them like thinking so fast and being like, and sometimes they're really crazy idea, but they're not that crazy when you think about it. And the crazier they are, the better.
Love it. Very good. Nicola, do we have questions?
Yes, I have a question on the chat. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
So there's a question about the ethical issue. So is the customer obsession and solution take precedence over any ethical and societal concerns of an innovative solution within Amazon? So at which stage does Amazon verify that its innovations are ethical?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. It's really a good question. So I only talk from my experience, but we conduct ethical reviews once we produce the PR FAQ. Within that, of course, we have ethical and legal consideration, and they are included in the FAQ. So that's where we talk about it. When we facilitate the workshop, of course, we encourage and we do that. However, ultimately, it's the responsibility of the customer to ensure that the innovation they produce is ethical, of course, and legal. But we do review that, and we have legal teams following everything. So, yeah.
Another question is, how did Amazon handle change management issues in its public sector initiatives? Is it part of an innovation and customer experience journey?
That's also a very good question, because I think it's fundamental, especially in digital transformation. You need to have change management. We work with partners. We have a network called APN, Amazon Partner Network. And within this consultant, for example, and then the one leading this change. We also have professional teams called ProServe, and there are own internal consultants. And of course, they do, when, for example, there is a migration from a legacy architecture to a cloud native architecture, then of course, our consultant will also participate in acculturating the organization to this change. So there is, of course, it's a big part of what we do.
Another question is on the last past month and the lockdown. So the question is, how did your team work during this difficult time?
Yeah, We work a lot. So we have our own solution called Amazon Chime. So it's a bit like Zoom. We have Slack. So we work like this. We spend a lot of time on video conferences. Honestly, but because we've always had a hybrid model. Because we are centralized global teams. Basically, it hasn't really changed that much, aside from me not going to the office and not seeing my colleagues in situ. But other than that, it hasn't really changed. I work with a global team. So they're in the US, in Australia. So it hasn't really changed that much. It's just at my home. And I have construction work. So that's the part that is not as fun. I see that there is a second question is the financial aspects. That's extremely important. As I said, we are a very narrative-driven organization. We have these working backwards artifacts, but we also have narratives. So if we want to have budget for an idea, we will write a narrative and we will add that to the produced artifacts. And that's how the decision is made. So that's we write quite a lot actually. And usually we don't produce that many slides. So yeah, that's how it's handled. We write a narrative explaining, justifying, of course, with the business model, etc. And that's how we get the budget. And is the working backwards cheaper than a traditional approach? I don't know. I'm not sure how I can answer that. Using the cloud is cheaper in the sense that we can condense the cycle. We can go really faster. And if it fails, well, because we can prototype rapidly, test rapidly, and of course, always have customer insights, then we can just pivot. So I think that using the cloud can, kind of minimize the cost. But I honestly could not answer. I don't have the benchmark on this, but that's a good question, and I will try at least.
This was perfect. Very good. Very nice. So I just switch my camera, let you see me again. Okay, it's working.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me.
It was a great pleasure, and we hope that next year, when the event will hopefully happen really live in Strasbourg, that maybe you might even join in person. We definitely stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you to you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
And a great bye.
See you. Bye. Okay, wonderful. Then let me take the screen share again. The second desktop. And yeah, I just wanted to present the program again. Okay, so yeah, this was a really nice talk again, and now we come to the next program point, which is the PhD poster presentation here, and the PhD poster presentation, I said it yesterday quickly already, is something that I personally consider a super valuable part of such a PhD school, because when you do the PhD, the most important thing is talk, talk, talk. Explain your topic to people. This is a very important tool to understand what you're doing, to hear where you could have problems in your argumentation, and so on. And so therefore, this spot I definitely wanted to keep. I send you the poster templates. We have more than 15. We have more than 15 of the posters that you send in. We have a special mode, as I started explaining yesterday, but I hand over to Erkin now, who will guide you through this session. As you see, the time is advanced, so we will continue with the next talk at 11 as planned. But after the talk, we will reopen the tool that we'll use for this meet and greet session, and you can walk over there after Akin will explain it to you, but then also after the talk of Ariane Group, you will have again the chance. So don't worry that it will be a little shorter, the second part of the presentation. We'll start with the pitch, but I hand over to Akin, who will explain to you the details. Okay, just stop sharing the screen. Akin, can you hear us? Are you with us?
Yes, yes. Can you also hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you. And you can also share. Did you put the slides on the presentation laptop? Are you connected to the presentation laptop?
So it should be PhD poster day 1. Maybe could someone else moderate the pitch and then I give the introduction to Gather.town afterwards? How does it sound? Or
yeah, we can definitely do it like that.
Then I share my screen for Gather.town. I share my screen, I give introduction, and then I give access for the